Hello, everyone. Welcome to this LinkedIn live session, second in a row that we're doing here with our friends from Data Vault UK. Quickly introducing myself. So my name is Jonas. I am a VP of product marketing for VaultSpeed, data warehouse, data vault automation tool. And with me here today is Neil Strange, the CEO of the Data Vault UK group. And Neil, maybe you can quickly introduce yourself.
I was going to say the same thing. I'm CEO of Data Vault UK. We're present in the UK and in the USA, so we have offices over there too. And we specialize in data vaults as a topic, all kinds of things to do with data vaults. So looking forward to today's conversation.
Yeah, which is basically also a bit what's bringing us together here, right? Today we're going to talk a little bit about something that a lot of people in the industry will come across at least once in their career, and potentially even twice or maybe even 10 times, who knows. The idea is that often you find yourselves as an organization in a place where you have an existing data practice, you're using a certain technology, and often that was related to a huge data warehouse or data lakehouse project that got built. But after some time, you find yourself in a situation where the technology becomes a bit more outdated, where the practice and the stuff that has been built is not fully answering the current requirements, current standards anymore. And where you find yourself in a situation where, and we're going to use the dirty word of legacy system here, but where you are stuck with a system that is not fully answering the current day standards anymore, let's say. And today we're gonna try and have a discussion here about what you can do, how these things typically go, how you should try to tackle this challenge of systems that become a little bit older, and how you can move forward to a new one and become an organization that is using leading technology, leading systems, leading methodologies again. Neil, I think you have a lot of things to say around the topic.
Yeah,
I can see that from your expressions. Let's kick it off. Maybe a good place to start is the things that typically trigger such a migration. I discussed a bit the fact that it's legacy, a bit older, but do you have a bit of an overview or a few things that you could share with folks listening in on what are typically the triggers for such a migration?
Yeah, I think being a consultancy, we're going to see a lot of these things happening because they're complicated pieces of work that you do maybe once every 10 years. It's not something you can rehearse and be an expert at. It's a new challenge every time. So usually it's, companies have invested a lot in their data platform. So you don't want to migrate for a trivial reason. There must be a breaking reason as to why you want to move away from what you have. And you brushed on a few of these already. There may be an increasing unease with the existing platform, may not be fit for purpose. It may be taking too long to build things out in there. Maybe the original design has left and it's starting to disintegrate. Maybe businesses asking for new things, which are impossible or very difficult to build out. So lots and lots of things around Gen AI now coming through. And some platforms are struggling to give good quality data up for Gen AI purposes. You may have had an acquisition, 2 platforms, which one survives, or do you build a third one or some combination? And just keeping up with the technology, really. We've got clients still on Hadoop running Athena against that. They just really need to move forward and keep up with the times in many ways. And then finally, the other reason we see is when we get a change of source, major source system. They may be with one platform, they've updated to a new one. That's all the data pipelines have to be reworked and maybe take that chance to modernize at the same time. Yeah, I think that's the one thing. And also, I don't know about you, but often the definition of migration is quite difficult to get clear.
Absolutely. I can relate to a few of those things. I know of at least one VaultSpeed customer that actually used the migration of was a organization in the financial industry that used the migration of one financial core platform to the other one, from an old one to a new one, and actually used the warehouse as some kind of intermediate layer. Now, they were in a good place. They already had a modern warehouse in place, but they actually used it to ease the migration from an old core banking system to a new one. And something we very often come across, especially when customers are looking to automation tools like VaultSpeed, is okay. You mentioned it, the fact that you have mergers, acquisitions, it's very hard to quickly align, yeah, two perhaps very similar physical data models, let's say, into one physical data model that still runs and still works. And yeah, speaking about Data Vault here, Data Vault is often really an enabler to still make these things happen. And whether they then re-platform the entire solution to a new platform or to one of the platforms that is already in use within one of the organizations that are being merged, that often depends a little bit. But it's not always about technology, right? Sometimes it's just about what methodology are you using. You might already be using a very modern data platform, data stack, but you might not have everything else, or you might not have the methodology or the data modeling practice in place yet to accommodate such an exercise like a merger or an acquisition. Yeah, those are the two that we see that are happening very often. And then, of course, technology related, cloud migration has been going on for quite a while, but it's still ongoing. There's still a lot of customers that are still using more legacy on-prem systems, and there might be very good reasons for those. But at some point, we see that more and more organizations are taking the step to migrate to cloud data platforms. Sometimes it's a bit mix and match, right? And that kind of leads us to maybe one of the next topics we can cover. It's often very hard, I think, to scope a migration right. Sometimes people want to do everything at the same time, or they're not migrating enough. What's your view on that? What do you see there as the most common issue?
We often have deadlines in place. Maybe there's a time when an old source system will be replaced by a new one. So you're working to intersect that and have the analytics and reporting all working on that point. But the thing about migration is you've got to be moving multiple things at the same time. Management might say do a like for, but you're not doing a like. So you're changing the database platform underneath. You may be changing the cloud network structure. You may be changing the data platform, the ETL tool, reporting tool, and the data scope and all the rest of that. And I think there comes a point at where you need to say, if I try and change everything with a big bang, we all know that's going to be problematic. Yeah. So sometimes you're forced into it, in which case you should caveat your way out as much as possible as a project manager to what you will and won't deliver. But ideally, you should be doing incremental migration, a bit at a time, test it, reconcile it, move forward, and move forward in lockstep. So yes, scoping is quite an interesting one. What is it you're trying to achieve in business terms at the end, not just technically, to that new platform? And then you get the office politics involved, which says, you're doing a migration. Well, while you're doing that, could you just is one of those hidden
maybe as this tiny other component of this project, do this at the same time.
Could you just, as an AI front end while you're at it, could you just change the platform? Could you just support three other dashboarding technologies that we'd like to play with? And before you know it, it's a major program.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, I think something that's also very important, and you do have to scope that very well, whether it's a merger, an acquisition, or just an internal decision to replat or make some big changes, there is always, otherwise there wouldn't have been an initial platform to migrate from to begin with. There's always a business need. There's always ongoing business processes that rely on data being provided on a day-to-day basis, maybe even faster. So that's also an important one, making sure that critical business processes don't fail and that you can keep safeguarding the good order of all that data being delivered in due time to the right people, even while being in the midst of a migration. So it's a lot of plates you have to keep up at the same time.
I think that's a core skill. Yeah, core skill for migration is the ability to handle 1,000 issues all at the same time. So you need to be very well organized. You need to maintain lists and so on in there. And I think that business focus is important. There may be technical dependencies. You can't run reports off the new reporting technology unless you've got data there and it's installed and people are trained. But actually, business needs are important. So you prioritize functionality by business area. And
Yep.
I think that's one of the strengths of Data Vault because of its late integration capabilities. Is you can migrate individual tables or whatever into a target for specific reporting needs, and then go back later on and add more of the elements later. And they should naturally integrate because of the way the keys are handled. So Data Vault gives you that sort of agile response that you need to do that iteration over and over again, a bit here, a bit there, a bit here, a bit there, and gradually build the whole jigsaw up as far as the migration goes. So
Yeah,
always keep an eye on the business objectives. I think otherwise you're going to get trapped in the technology and end up delivering very little.
and make a lot of people angry. Why are you doing this migration in the first place? Will then be a question that is being asked.
Yeah.
Already leads us, and we've been discussing it already, but actually into the execution of a migration. You mentioned a big bang, probably not the best way to go. You should do an incremental approach. Data Vault is a perfect methodology to tackle such an incremental approach. That you can really do it gradually and not have to migrate everything at the same time. The part of the scoping, but also part of the execution is also to choose which parts of the stuff that needs to be migrated or the stuff that needs to be newly built, let's say. And it's a choice of what do you do first? Do you start with a very important use case that really can't break, or do you start with something that is more, a new project? What's the best approach there?
I think there's a couple of drivers in here. One is that you tend to have a very large reporting load off of the old warehouse, and there could be tens, 50s, hundreds, thousands of reports there that really need to be working after the migration happens. I see a lot of customers get into the situation where they have to rewrite the whole lot, and they hire a big team and it just works for 2 years, just reworking spreadsheets and reworking dashboards to work off the new stack. You don't really need to do that. You can mock up the old data structures out of the new warehouse as a temporary data product, so that you buy some time and reduce that dependency on that report rework. But also, I think what you really should prioritize is some end-to-end delivery. So don't say, oh, I've got all the staging first, and once I've done all the staging, then I'll worry about the integration, and then I'll worry about the presentation layer. I'd be picking an end-to-end use case and just proving the technology, proving the migration approach works, and then building out from that. So you are delivering early value. And for me, one of the real biggest cheats you can do really is just to migrate the data product from the old system to the new. So everything happens in the old system, just happens that the end result is replicated across to your new platform. And then you can try to connect the dashboards to that to see if they work. Yeah. So then a flow that goes through the old to the new, and then you gradually behind the scenes replace the data pipelines and switch them off on the old, and knowing what you reconcile with the new as you go. I think the other thing you've got to do to start off with also is to build a proper test harness. So I have a mental model of this. You're living in a house, and that's your old data system. And you want to change the house. You want to add another floor to it. You want to make it a double garage and nice things. But you've got to keep living in there while you're upgrading it. If you're going to do that to your house, the first thing you need to do is to build scaffolding around the house, hold it together while you're doing the work. And then you can be moving from room to room and worrying about the dust and how the water flows temporarily while you're in there. And it's like that with a migration. You've got this nice place you want to be in, but you've still got to keep living. You've still got to keep running the system while you're doing that migration. So you need this temporary scaffolding, tests, harnesses around that. And that to me is also one of the things you can do by building out that initial end-to-end thing. You can make sure that the scaffolding works as well. Then you can start with redundant load by bringing in across more data. In terms of what you pick, it's up to you really. Whatever the business needs you to do. And I tend to pick something that means something. Don't go for something trivial. Pick something that has some stake in the business so that you are...
Decent value, decent stake.
Well, Otherwise,
But
it's very
maybe
interesting.
maybe not the most important use case
Oh, no.
first. I think that would be a bit my experience. Like you take something that is important enough, that has value and visibility within the organization, so you can use it to prove that this migration is really going to bring more value, that it's going to speed things up a little bit, and also prove like, yeah, future proof for the next couple of years, let's say. That's why you're updating these systems anyway. But at the other end, not to take something that is so business critical that if something goes wrong, yeah, you might end up dropping the migration project altogether and then finding yourself in the same place where you started, perhaps a couple of months, maybe a year later.
Actually, if you do it well, the end users should experience a better customer service as a result. It may be available earlier in the day, the quality might be better, or it may crash. It may not crash as frequently as the old system will crash at all, shouldn't crash at all. So, yeah, and I think the other critical thing is you need to engage the business. So if you give them a trivial data set, it's not really in their interest to look at it. Something meaningful means you will get that engagement and buy-in, and they'll want to see that they haven't lost data, that it does reconcile as well. They'll be engaged helping with that. And I think that helps a lot to get that migration through.
You mentioned also, Neil, that, and it's a very common practice. I've seen it happen time and time again. People start a migration and they had an existing platform, they have the new platform, and in the end, they end up with having at least 2, maybe 3, 4, depending on how many migrations that have been started.
Client had 7, so
seven platforms. There you go. So you've seen it as well. How do you make sure that doesn't happen?
I think it's about driving the project. Someone's got to take ownership of it and just make it happen. So it's rare that the migration alone pays for itself in terms of technical savings, but all the same, you don't want to be paying for the old system to keep running in parallel. So you just take ownership of it and say, we're going to close it on this date. You have a dedicated team member or a couple of team members responsible for that. You make them plan it out so that you can roll back if you have to. And you basically decommission it, switch it off, and then remove it and save the money. It also reduces the security footprint if you have data someplace that no one's using, and reduces the costs for the organization. If it's static, you'll be paying just for the storage, hopefully, or maybe paying for a now defunct tools in there. But yes, it should be taken care of, removed, archived off, whatever's necessary to make your landscape a bit cleaner.
And you also do that gradually, right? You move a certain functionality from the old to the new, and then part of that smaller project, or within the full migration project, part of that sub project is actually also a vital part is also to switch off the functionality on the older system. Maybe another one on that is, I've often seen people and project managers split teams between the old and the new platform. I don't know what your take on that is, Neil, but myself, I don't see that working, because it organizes automatically in the human brain some kind of competition between the old and the new platform. And that means that instead of working together towards this end goal of completing the migration, you create a team that wants to move as fast as possible and a team that wants to keep functionality on the old platform.
It can be quite demoralizing, can't it, as well? Demoralizing. If you're in the team managing the old system, you're wondering what's going to happen to you when the old system's switched off. Yeah, I think they need everyone involved. Your future platform team anyway, with a data vault running, should be quite small, and everyone having a skill set. If you were running the old one with 30, 40 people, you need to find something else for them to do eventually when you end up with a much smaller team in the data vault side. Yeah, I think, yes, I agree. One team, you can rotate people through BAU if you want. So take it in turns every week for someone to be in a support role. That might be good, or some people might volunteer to do that as a more permanent part that fits the way their day fits together. But I agree. Yeah, one team for both. After all, it's one function as far as the business is concerned. It's called reporting and analytics. So coming out artificially 2 teams, then they can blame each other for something going wrong.
Yeah, no one cares who did something wrong. Everybody cares whether it's up and running and
exactly
organized.
Right,
okay, cool.
Yeah. Any questions? We have a question coming in the audience here. What's our advice on building a business case for migration? That's a good question. There are, if you like, I'll start off. I think there are two things in there. I mentioned earlier, there's a technical case. Will the new technology be cheaper to run than the old technology? And the answer is it could be, may not be, depends. I think you need to be measuring efficiencies or cost per unit. Maybe you may be running a 10 terabyte database before, and now you're moving up to 100 terabytes, 200 terabytes. You may not save any money, but you're doing 4 or 5 times as much work with the same money. So that may be one way of looking at it. And then on the business side, I think we're looking here at really enabling costs, so enabling benefits. So what couldn't you do before? And what do you think the advantage is there for your business? Lots of Gen AI, for example, is quoted as giving massive benefits for the business. What if you're unable to implement it as well as you thought? So take an example. Harvard Business Review says Gen AI may give you 50% increase in your sales performance. Okay, if you're $1 billion company, that's a 500 million potential upside. Yes, of course, the data platform is only a part of that. But if data platform allows you to be more effective in delivering that, you'll get to that 500 million faster, or you're going to secure more of that 500 million guaranteed because of the quality that's in there. And even a few percentages difference in performance of that kind of scale would more than pay for platform to be developed. So you need to think of it in those sorts of terms, I think.
And sometimes it helps to really bridge the gap between a core technology capability and bridge it maybe even through a couple of intermediate steps, but bridge the gap between technology and actually in the end shareholder value through some intermediate steps, and try to allocate certain technology to a certain value that you could bring the company. Gen AI is a good example. If you can make better predictions of, I don't know, your cost model, or if you're in insurance, of your risk factor, whatever you're trying to do, it could basically help you to allocate certain part of the technology cost, let's say, or the migration cost to a certain piece of actual shareholder value. That kind of helps. There's a second question as well, Neil. Where is it? What are the best practices for decommissioning the old systems? I think we covered one, the fact that you actually have that.
Yes, I think you need to make it reversible, just in case. So you need to have a rollback plan in place, and you need to be backing up the data. I think those I think are the most important things. And I think you're right. Decommission as you go, as you move each piece of functionality over to the new system, decommission it. Again, it's one of those things. Big bang isn't good. So take a bit out at a time. Eventually, it should be just switching the lights off. There shouldn't be much left in there by the time you finish the migration exercise.
I think backing up data is a good practice there. It organizes a sort of, like you have a soft opening, you have to organize a soft closing. Because what you often see at the end of a migration project is, we think we've migrated everything that is still needed, but there's also still a lot of stuff there. So what do we do with it? And there's a couple of reasons that can happen. It's because no one cares about it anymore. It's just running, consuming resources as it goes, or someone might have forgotten about it. That's another option. Sometimes a soft closing where everything seems to be down might help to trigger some people to say, hey, my report isn't loading anymore. What happened? Anyway, good management will also bring you a long way in that. But if you have a backup of the data, you can always, even if it's a backup that is stored somewhere, maybe even on the new system already, you can migrate dumps of data as well. You can still figure out a way to migrate also that final piece of the puzzle.
Okay, we have another question there about AI. So do you think AI can be used to assist with migration? And if so, how? I think obviously, yes, it can. I can immediately think of 3 or 4 things where it can be helpful. So one is to do with generating test data. So you could say, I have a table that looks like this in the live system. Can I have some test data generated, please, that looks similar or has similar profile? You're going to have hundreds of meetings in the migration with people to agree 1,000 different points. And AI can be very useful to record and transcript your meetings and document your agreements. So you can have very well documented assumptions and agreed decisions in there. I think you can also use it for profiling. So you can ask it to detect if they can see any PII data in there or any odd data components inside the data sets. And potentially also in developing some of the dashboarding off the front end, you can ask it to query data and generate you reports much faster off the front end, either to analyze data quality or to replace maybe a difficult dashboard that you're having trouble migrating across. I don't know if you used it for anything else, but we tend to use it for those sorts of things.
All good points. Yeah. I don't know. Perhaps we could even use it to say, hey, dear ChatGPT, can you write me a migration project plan, please? You'll not forget any of the steps, perhaps, but I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
AI on the accelerated build, I think, of your reporting layer might be a very good one, especially if you're using data vaults. Data vault is a pretty interesting and repeatable standard. It can AI will directly recognize the patterns on how to write queries on top of a data vault. Even if you haven't used it in the legacy system and you're now implementing data vault in the new one, I think running an analytics engine, AI reporting on top of data vault will have much better results than running it on any other modeling methodology.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there, yes. I'm sure there are other things, obviously, yes. Okay, good.
Almost coming to a close. Yeah, gotta finish it off to keep time here, Neil. It's too interesting. We can keep going. What I think we should definitely mention still for everyone here is, Neil, your upcoming event in September.
Yes.
VaultSpeed will be joining, but please tell us all about it.
Yes, this will be our second user group, Data Vault user group. It's a very friendly, club-like atmosphere. We get people of interest with Data Vault from UK, Europe, and we get people from the States flying over too. And it's 2 days of education, networking, bit of fun thrown in as well, with an overnight stay in the middle. On the 10th, we're running a special training event, the early evening, followed by pizza and beer. And then the conference itself proper starts on the 11th and 12th. We've got a number of authors turning up, including specialists in things like data contracts, star schemas, and we are also flying Patrick Cuber over from Australia to be in attendance. And he's a world expert author on Data Vault as well. And if it's anything like last year, it should be good fun and even better than last year, building on that. There's a link there to attend. We've kept the price really low to attract people to attend. And there's campus accommodation available. If you fancy reliving your university days, then there's very good quality, actually, student accommodation available, all en suite for those who want to attend. But it should be great fun, and it was great fun last year. We're really looking forward to it again this year. It's not far from Heathrow Airport in the UK as well, so it's very easy to travel to.
That's also my travel plan. Looking forward to it, Neil.
Yep, good to see you there. That's right, and you'll be, as one of the sponsors, you'll be there. So people come and see the tooling and learn more about how that can support your Data Vault projects.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I think it's time to close it off. I would like to thank everyone for joining us in this session. I would like to thank you, Neil, for your advice. Always great to hear. And I think with this, we can close it off.